Next on BYUSN, what are your bowl game expectations for BYU football given the current state of the roster and the coaching staff turnover?
But is Jaron Hall playing? Kalani Sitake weighs in.
We're playing. Welcome to BYU Sports Nation, at least on this show. Presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. It is Tuesday, December 13th. I am Spencer Linton, alongside recruiting expert Jarom Jordan.
Yes, there's nothing. We can't even mention recruits' names on the show. Yeah, but recruiting, obviously, a big deal for BYU football. We're excited because in, 8 days, National Signing Day, the early period, which used to be like just a couple guys. Nope, it's like the majority. We will have full coverage of that coming up in 8 days right here.
It's been very uneventful for me in the recruiting world with BYU over the past few days on social media. Extremely uneventful.
It has. Hey, keep your chin up. On today's show, what are your expectations for the bowl game given the coaching and players situation right now? BYU Radio's Riley Nelson weighs in, plus his memories from the New Mexico Bowl in 2010. Cougars let go of more football staff. We'll tell you who. And we found the drippiest Christmas Cougar coach. But first, today's headlines.
BYU football head coach Kalani Sitake, he stirred the pot a little bit with some roster news ahead of the New Mexico Bowl on Saturday, specifically saying no decision has been finalized on the availability of Jaron Hall for Saturday's postseason game against the SMU Mustangs. Here's the coach.
Jaron has not been eliminated from contention to play, so there's that, and then he hasn't been participating as much as we'd like him to be in practices, but this week will tell.
Of note, no Lopini Katoa at running back, but Chris Brooks, Miles Davis, and Hinckley Ropati are all good to go and expected to play.
Kalani Sitake also mentioned strength and conditioning coaches Justin McClure and Tafisi have been released. Spencer Reed, Andy's son, is the interim strength coach who has been an assistant this season.
Shout out to head coach Guard Young and BYU Gymnastics, who finished last season at number 24 in the national polls, have been invited to participate in the inaugural Super 16 gymnastics meet held in Las Vegas. The meet takes place January 6th and 7th and will feature powerhouse teams like Oklahoma, Georgia, Auburn, Stanford, and UCLA. Great challenge for BYU Gymnastics. All rise and shout. It is time for What's Trending.
Nakua makes a sliding catch for 6.
Who's in and who's out on the actual roster and on the coaching staff for that matter? Jaron Hall still not officially ruled out, as we just documented, at quarterback, but a bunch of other starters will not play.
They're never going to say, yeah, he's ruled out.
Of course not. It's gamesmanship, right? It's gamesmanship. Yeah. A bunch of other starters will not play, and we know for sure of that in the New Mexico Bowl. We'll get to the specifics of that in just a moment. And, of course, again, the coaching staff, who's available to coach BYU's defense? Kalani Sitake, Gennaro Guilford.
That's it, man. Everyone else is gone.
Some Gavin Fowler in the mix as an analyst.
Yeah, you can use all the analysts. Yeah, of course.
Jarom, with BYU's current roster and coaching staff turnover, what are your expectations for the New Mexico Bowl in 2022?
I hate to say it, but I expect BYU to lose. Like, if BYU wins, it'll be awesome. And BYU needs to overcome a few things to do so. If Jaron Hall can't play, Cade Finnegan's got to have a good game. He's got to manage this game effectively. He doesn't have to throw for 300. Christopher Brooks, though, and Hinckley Ropati and Miles Davis, though, they need to maybe run for 300. We've seen that in 2 games this year where BYU went 300+. They're coming off a season-high 358 at Stanford. And that was a winning formula when Jaron Hall went out. Now, Jaron played well and threw some touchdown passes, of course, prior to that. But my expectation is that BYU is going to have to do something drastically different if Jaron Hall cannot go. He has not been ruled out. I don't expect BYU to rule him out. They want SMU to prepare for Jaron Hall. But, with Jacob Conover gone, it would have been the same thing, which is, sorry, who's doing what? We haven't seen this kid play. That would have applied to Jacob, too, even if he was here. But perhaps it's Cade's show. We'll see.
Yeah.
And if Jaron doesn't play, as you pointed out, he will not have played in a bowl game at BYU.
Weird.
Which is pretty odd. The defensive staff is depleted. This BYU defense has given up 30+ a game, 440 total. They've had issues this season, certainly. Doesn't help when most of the staff is gone. Like, I don't imagine it suddenly being better because you have fewer coaches there. So that concerns me as well. And then here's the deal, though. regardless of what happens, win or loss, we're going to flush this result down the toilet.
You think?
Because the Big 12 is next. I turn back to the 2015. We'll be excited that BYU recovered and won 8 games, but given that the expectation was like 9.5, it's not going to be up to snuff, and so we'll just move on to the next thing soon after that.
If it's a loss, I 100% agree with you.
Yes, if it's a win, like, dude, within days we'll be like, Big 12, Big 12. Either way. Remember 2015, BYU lost to Utah? We didn't sulk in that. What we did was get excited about the new hire and announcement of Kalani Sitake. Great PR move by BYU. In the press box at Sam Boyd Stadium, they announced that Kalani was the coach. Kalani wasn't even there. It was just, hey, we're hiring Kalani, a.k.a. this is over. This season is over. Who cares? So I don't expect a ton from this bowl game. I would love for BYU to win. I'm also intimidated by the way SMU is playing. The last 7, as I mentioned, 5-2, the 2 losses respectable. Close to Cincinnati, blowout loss to Tulane, who's the New Year's 6 G5 team. They're playing good ball. BYU is coming in depleted.
Yes.
This is UAB Part 2.
It's not even that good for BYU.
There's no Tyler Algier, and there's no Baylor Romney.
Exactly. It's not that good for BYU.
I know I'm probably supposed to sell the ball game because we've got a pregame show, but I am interested to see that if BYU's defense can play better than it has, and then somehow that run game save BYU. Even if Jaron Hall plays this still might not be a BYU win. This is interesting on a lot of fronts. I hope BYU pulls it out.
For sure. Yeah, and you said it. This is the Independence Bowl, but BYU's in worse shape than they were going into that game against UAB. And you don't have Tyler Algier. You have your third-string quarterback, we think, most likely will start in Cade Finnegan.
Who was injured.
Who is also recently, coming out of a boot with an ankle injury. So what's BYU going to get from Cade Finnegan? What am I supposed to expect when this roster is now depleted more so than last year's roster was going into the bowl game, and the coaching staff has been turned over? What? Is it fair to expect BYU to go in this game and win? Oh, yeah, BYU, no problem. Next man up.
It is not, but we will do so regardless.
I do expect to be surprised a little bit by Cade Finnegan.
Yes, please.
I expect that.
Please.
It's like, oh, okay.
Look at that.
Yeah, look at that throw.
Because we'll be
That's
like, someone else threw a pass.
Yes.
At BYU.
We saw what? We saw 3 passes from other people, from people not named Jaron Hall this year.
Chase Roberts is the greatest quarterback in BYU history according to his passer rating. You know what I mean, against Baylor. But
yeah, one of them was a receiver. We saw Jacob Conover throw 1 pass this season.
Into the dirt.
Yeah. We just haven't seen it. So I expect to be surprised by Cade Finnegan.
Yeah.
And reports coming out of practice are that Cade's arm is really strong. And Aaron Roderick has said that before. He's got a great arm.
It's just different when you're the potential starter.
Sure.
We'll see. Hopefully Jaron plays. If not, Cade's the guy.
I expect, and I've said this before on the show as well, BYU to implement a game plan like we saw specifically against ECU and go heavy on the run game against a porous run defense in SMU.
It's everything defense.
The advantage that BYU has on SMU is clearly the offensive line matched up against SMU's front. Can BYU maintain the ball and run it essentially down SMU's collective throat and keep the ball for a long time and keep it away from the SMU offense? I expect BYU to try and do that and have a game plan just like ECU. If they do that, they got a shot. What's the defense going to look like, though? We're talking about your 3 top linebackers are all out.
Yep.
No Keenan Peely, no Peyton Wilgar, no Max Tooley.
You still have Ben Bywater.
You got Ben Bywater back there.
But those 3 gone, it's tough.
It's now Fisher Jackson that's going to get some run. And Jackson Kafusi is going to be elevated in a bigger role.
Yep.
Maybe BYU plays dime the whole time, and maybe they should play dime the whole time because SMU is going to chuck it all over the place.
Maybe. Pepe Tanuvasa the other. Yeah.
Yeah. Does BYU run 1 or 2 linebackers the whole game and just keep a bunch of defensive backs on the field?
I say drop 8 zone, just tip the cap.
No, the key is BYU holding on to the football. So I expect them to try and do that and flex on SMU with the BYU offensive line. But
yes, Christopher Brooks needs one of those games where he goes for like 150.
He's the dude.
He had 164 against Stanford. Great game, 135 against South Florida. It'd be nice if it was one of those games. If Christopher Brooks doesn't run for 150, I don't think BYU wins. Like, even if he runs for 150, it might be a stretch. It's got to be one of those
BYU's
days.
rushing attack collectively needs to rush for 150 plus, for sure.
Oh, Spence, it needs to be 250 plus. Like, 150 will not even approximate winning. Like, you're assuming that you're throwing for 250 because BYU's going to need 400 to 500 yards to win this game.
Just hold on to the ball.
If BYU's sub 400, loss.
This is a worse scenario, again, than BYU had in the Independence Bowl.
It's tough.
And you know, we felt okay because we had confidence in Baylor Romney, and BYU had Tyler Algier. And Tyler Algier did his thing. He was awesome in the Independence Bowl.
But Baylor threw for sub 200, which probably was too low. Probably needed to be in the 250 range. If Samson Nakua, if the refs call that, no, I'm not going to blame it on the refs. BYU just didn't win the game. BYU just didn't win the game.
It wasn't a fumble, but BYU shouldn't have been in that situation.
SMU on paper is not as good as that UAB team last year, though. By the way, their offense is better.
Yes,
they're playing better at this time of the year. They have better quarterback and receiver. Their defense is worse. So those numbers. You know, there's certain things that make you feel like, well, maybe BYU can do it. It's just that we just don't know what you're going to get out of the quarterback. We never go into a game feeling good about BYU when we don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback. Maybe this is Cade Fennegan's moment. Because if you're Cade, think about the opportunity here, should Jaron not go. Hey, I know they're going to bring in maybe one or two, at least one, maybe two guys. I'm competing for the starting spot next year. What if I have a great bowl game? That would really catapult Cade into an interesting place. Should he have a great game, and if BYU wins, like, this is an opportunity for Cade. He came to BYU for this type of game.
Yeah.
So maybe he rises up in a way that we haven't anticipated. We've just seen him play once. It was against one of the best BYU teams ever in 2020, and it was tough for him to navigate that as a guy who that week probably wasn't expecting to play much. He admitted as much in Deep Blue. Hey, I'm third string. Suddenly he's in the game. Against BYU, a team he grew up rooting for. His dad played here, And he has 2 touchdowns at the very end once the game is over. That was nice. But honestly, they were sort of garbage yards and touchdowns. Game was over. But it was something positive for a young quarterback. But in the big scheme of things, like, well, yeah, BYU's playing its third stringers, whatever. This is Cade Fennegan's moment, and maybe he does something. But it's hard to expect him to do something. If he does it, it will be a surprise and awesome.
He has nothing to lose.
Sure.
Seriously, he has nothing to lose.
He's not supposed to win the game.
No, he will surprise us. There will be some throws and some plays, and he's pretty athletic. He can run around a little bit. Even though he's been injured, we'll see him scramble and make some plays, and people will be like, okay. But this is his opportunity to solidify himself as the number 2 at BYU, behind whoever BYU brings in from the transfer portal.
Well,
or if
in his mind, to be the guy.
To compete for the job.
Hey, I want to be the guy. Let me show you in a game.
I don't know if a bowl game is enough, but maybe it's enough to
Probably not, but
grant Aaron Rodgers some confidence that, okay, let's have a competition.
Well, and if BYU brings in a really good, capable quarterback, Cade might be like, well, let me show you in practice that I'm the guy. Who knows?
Cade has an advantage. He knows the BYU offense better than whoever their Cougars are going to bring in at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So, this is opportunity knocks.
And what's Cade's story? Cade is a kid that comes out of Dallas, played at high-level football in Texas, does really well.
Was probably recruited by SMU. I don't know. I need to follow up on that. Probably was.
Probably. Cliff Kingsbury is the head coach at North Texas at the time, and he really wants Cade. He really wants him, and Cade's interested. Then Cliff goes to be the OC at USC, and at the end of Cade's mission, he gets a lot of interest by USC to go there. Like, that's how respected Cade was at high school. Ends up going to Boise State, felt like it was a good fit. Ends up having an opportunity to be a scholarship quarterback at BYU, and here he is. And now he's got a chance, perhaps, in the New Mexico Bowl.
I can't wait for Cade Fennegan to start for the Arizona Cardinals and for the story to be completed for Cliff Kingsbury.
Yes. Sorry. Not Cliff Kingsbury. Graham Harrell.
Oh, Graham Harrell. Okay,
Graham Harrell's at North Texas, then USC. No. Yeah, wrong Texas Tech quarterback. Yeah.
Okay. Again, what do I expect? I expect BYU to battle hard. Like, that's what BYU does. They play hard.
Well, I expect that every game.
It's going to be interesting. Like, I'm very intrigued by this game because of so many new pieces for sure.
I'm scared to death and I'm excited at the same time.
I mean, if I said to you, like, just looking at BYU's opening day roster compared to what they're going to roll out in the bowl game, I said, okay,
it's bad, dude.
No Jaron, no Gunner, no Lopini, no Keenan Peely, no Peyton Wilgar, no Max Tooley, no Malik Moore. Your top 4 defenders are all out.
No win.
You say no win.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Yeah.
it is fair to expect BYU to fall short in this game. But that doesn't take away from the idea that there is always hope.
Well, and
hope is all we have.
And does SMU not stir up comeback emotions?
Yes.
Perhaps the comeback isn't 21 with 4:20 left in the game. It's, well, even our own guys were saying we were going to lose this on our air. Like, we're depleted staff and roster, and maybe that's sort of the summoning that some of these backups need for BYU.
Well, yeah, maybe the nothing to lose attitude
Perhaps.
is so beneficial for BYU that they go out and they just ball out, and the offensive line is awesome, and BYU establishes a run game with Chris Brooks.
And I'm telling you, this doesn't matter. Like, if BYU loses, we'll just go, yo, Big 12, baby. If BYU wins, we'll be like, sweet, hey.
But if they win, we'll say, oh, man, they did it with a third-string quarterback and a bunch of reserves. Awesome.
We'll play that card again from 2019 Boise State.
Absolutely. We will, yeah. So, but if it's a loss, you're right. Like, now, whatever.
Big 12.
Whatever.
It's all good. Oh, we're going to a P5. We didn't even care about this G5
but
opponent.
But if BYU wins, BYU fans will play that card so hard. Oh, my gosh. Can you believe with all of this, the depleted roster and a very short-staffed scenario on the coaching front that BYU got it done?
Rashee Rice will be like with the Ravens in 2 years. We'll be like, remember when we beat that guy?
Oh, yeah. Forever New Mexico champs going to the Power 5 and the Big 12. Our voice of the nation.
No, let's not hang a banner like we did.
We won't. Okay. Now for our voice of the nation with our question of the day. With BYU's current roster and coaching staff turnover, what are your expectations for the bowl game? Clyde Livingston on Twitter answers, I expect Jarom Jordan to finally get a fantasy football victory when Spencer Linton's team doesn't even play because of injuries, the transfer portal, and changes in the lineup. Jaron Hall has carried my fantasy football team.
He's carried the team this year.
Like, I have to go now with, like, largely, well, I don't have a defender that's available because Max Tooley's
And I'm going to wave a fool and pick up Cade. Like, for sure.
So you're going to take,
just in case.
You're going to take Cade Fennigan. So I've got, I hope Jamal Williams has a big week in the NFL. Fred Warner does this thing.
He's still got balls.
And then I hope Puka Nacua does this thing, catching passes from Cade Fennigan.
Puka absolutely could. But I hope that Cade and Chris do me right.
Yeah, Cade and Chris. Are Cade and Chris the answer to your fantasy football win for the first time this season?
Probably not, but your boy's undefeated in basketball, so we're good.
Yeah. Spencer Johnson, get healthy.
Zach Wilson, to me, has essentially been Spencer Johnson.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
Playing, but not doing as much as we were hoping.
Yeah, can I go ahead and waive him already? I'm just going to go ahead and make that official. I know we haven't done it yet, but can I go ahead and waive Spencer Johnson?
On Thursday, we will formally do that. Friday, I think we'll do fantasy football. Yeah.
Hashtag BYUSN on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. All right. There is a somber note that is taking over the college football world with the passing of Mike Leach. We learned that this morning through the Mississippi State University official account that Coach Leach has passed away. Talked about this on the show yesterday. An incredible personality and man, and just one of a kind, unique, a legend in the college football world. Tom Holmoe added this on Twitter. Mike is a BYU alum and friend of ours for many years. His daughter and son both worked in our athletic department while BYU students and were incredible young people. We love the Leaches. You have our constant prayers and concerns.
And that was sent, last night before the news broke out. But, yeah, this is a real bummer, Spence. 61 years old, was a BYU student, graduated from here, played rugby out of Cody, Wyoming, wanted to play college football.
And I love the story that you shared about Mike's ties to rugby.
Yeah, so in 2009, I was with the rugby team at Stanford. They were getting ready. They beat San Diego State in the semis on a Thursday. And that Friday night, the rugby team and alumni gathered in Palo Alto to get ready for the championship game, to celebrate what could be their first national title. They had lost 3 years before, previous 3 years to count, but just been blown out. Well, Mike Leach shows up to this. He's the Texas Tech head coach at the time. He's not just doing whatever. He's a big deal. Took the time out to support the rugby team, went to the national title game. I had a 5-minute conversation with Mike at the time because he had just been on the cover of Sports Illustrated with Texas Tech and the whole pirate deal and everything. And he was super nice, just like you see him in all his interviews.
Yes.
Quirky, interesting, funny, genuine. It was great. He was super nice. And it really struck me that he would support the rugby team that he helped play on 40 years before. And certainly part of that Lavelle tree in that he wasn't, formally anything with BYU on staff, to my understanding, but he would informally sort of show up. It might have been an analyst or a GA of some kind that way, but he would be around Lavelle and Norm Chow and these innovators. And he was influenced, obviously, how Mummy certainly influenced him. And he does incredible work at Oklahoma and then Texas Tech, of course, and Wazoo. 2012, BYU hosts Mike Leach and Washington State here at Lavelle Edwards Stadium in the second home opener of Independence that year. And then, of course, with Mississippi State. Has a massive heart attack, unfortunately, Sunday, and then passed away, we learned last night. So just really sad because Mike Leach. Legend in the game. Yes. Innovator. Unique in his approach to life, and his takes were hilarious. And I just imagine a real fun conversation with he and Lavelle today. Which would be fun to hear. But yeah, we're going to miss Mike Leach. As a college football fan, obviously his connections to BYU, his kids worked in the athletic department and went to BYU, certainly had a connection here. And Mike was one of the best in the game. One of his coaches, Lincoln Riley, has produced 3 of the last 6 Heismans. You just see the influence that Mike has had on college football, and he's just a fun guy to listen to.
Absolutely.
I'm going to miss that.
I mean, you want to know what he meant to college football? Spend about 10 minutes on Twitter and look at the high-profile names that he has influenced and impacted, all for the positive, and even some lesser knowns. Some reporters popping up and saying, I remember getting a phone call after midnight from Mike Leach when every other coach that I'd requested an interview from had denied me, and he called me back and we talked for 30 minutes, and he was super personable and kind. He did that type of stuff all the time, and yes, he was hilarious. I spent an hour with my wife up after midnight watching Mike Leach press conference tidbits the other night, and we were laughing, like cackling out loud at just how unique and wonderful his personality is. He is so funny. Yeah. And one of my college roommates dated his daughter and talked about Mike glowingly. Said, he's so weird, but he's the coolest guy. He's one of the coolest guys I've ever met. Gone far too soon. At 61, our thoughts and prayers and love sent to the Leach family. Mike Leach, a legend in college football, at the age of 61, passes away. We'll be back with more BYU Sports Nation after this.
If you're looking to build your brand awareness and increase market share as BYU moves into the Big 12, this is the place, BYU Athletics. We can provide the tools you need to make sure your company is seen and heard. BYU Athletics is where you can align your products and services with loyal fans that cheer for our Cougars. And they can also help your business win. Learn more about what a partnership with BYU Athletics and your company will look like. After all, this is the place. Email sponsorship at byu.edu today.
When my grandfather started this company in 1947, he couldn't have envisioned what we would ultimately become. We realized that our value to our customers is that we will be there day after day, year after year, doing whatever we need to find solutions to the challenges that they face. We are committed to be honestly better in all that we do, in every opportunity that we have to serve our customers.
Introducing the Truck for Adventure. The all-new 2022 Nissan Frontier doesn't compromise on power or comfort. This mid-size truck was redesigned to incorporate the latest technology and designs for safety, comfort, and convenience. Plus, with up to 6,700 pounds of towing capacity and best-in-class horsepower, it's rugged enough for adventure and still safe enough to transport all your favorite people. Where's your new Frontier? You'll find it at Tim Dowling Nissan Southtown and South Jordan.
There are things happening in Seaburg.
They care more about people spending money than they do about people getting sick.
If they're causing toxic pollution, it is everyone's fight. We can't just let them get away with it.
If anyone can figure this out, it's my brother.
Friends don't abandon each other. Fine. Be heroes.
I know what it's like to love someone so much you'd do anything for them.
Whatever happens, I'm glad we're facing it together.
Me too.
We are live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. That is Jarom Jordan. I am Spencer Linton. And it is our pleasure to welcome in former BYU quarterback, a man who led the Cougars to a 10-win season. He is Riley Nelson. He is the radio analyst along with Greg Wrubell as the Cougars get set for the New Mexico Bowl. Riley, welcome back to BYU Sports Nation.
Good to be with you this morning, fellas.
All right, let's start with the huge elephant in the room, which is BYU's current roster and coaching staff turnover. There's been a ton of it. What are your expectations given the depleted roster that's available for the bowl game and the limited number of coaches?
Yeah, boy, every game's important and momentum's a real thing, and carrying a loss into the offseason, while it can be motivating for the existing roster, it's hard to recruit off of. And, you talk about limited coaches giving that some have moved on and the changes that have been made, but also I know the ones that are on staff are hit recruiting hard in the transfer portal and trying to lock up high school players and really get a strong class to head into their first year of the Big 12. So, look, we've been hearing all year from Coach Sitake, and hopefully it's not just coaches speak, but he's talked about the maturity of the players on the team, the strength of its leaders, and hopefully that they can organize and through the entirety of this season have developed the skills to where they can prepare. Given the fact that the position group might have a couple less guys, or the coaches leading the drills might not be the ones that started the season with them.
Yeah, it's tough because if Jaron Hall doesn't play, it looks tough. Given how SMU's playing and what they have offensively with Rashee Rice and Tanner Mordecai and company. Defensively, they give up a lot, though, so maybe this is a situation where the BYU offense can do something. But let's say Jaron Hall doesn't play, if he can't play. Cade Fennegan, we've seen him play, but against BYU, not at BYU. What do you expect in a bowl game in this situation if Cade Fennegan is the guy at quarterback?
What do I expect? It's probably not as high as what my hopes are. My hopes are, being that Roderick architects a system very similar to what we see. He's never been a coaching tree or whatever. He's kind of a disciple of what Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and some of these other guys have established. They got wide zone, and ideally it's play action. It's a very quarterback-friendly system. And what we've seen from San Francisco, right, is they've been able to plug in a guy like Brock Purdy, start the season with Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, plug in, they've been through 3 quarterbacks, yet they still sit atop the division in the NFC West. What I'm best case scenario, what I'm hoping for is that they're able to plug Cade Fennegan in. He's a kid who's obviously had reps at the D1 level before. He's not a fresh daisy by any stretch of the imagination. So he should be able to have the maturity to go out there, make good decisions, stay poised and calm and within the elements of the offense and be able to produce. That will be his production, and the offense's production overall will be largely dependent on the performance of the O-line. So if those 5 dudes up front are getting ready to play, then great. And then defensively, hopefully, you got a bunch of young, hungry guys or guys who are maybe getting their first opportunity to really shine or get their first start or, play 60 to 70% of the snaps for the first time, and that they're hungry and they want to get an edge on perhaps a position battle going into spring or next year and all those things, and that you get a surprise performance out of the defense. So that's a best case scenario. What I expect is that this is going to be a dogfight. I'll just call it I think if SMU wins, it could very easily be a double-digit victory. If BYU wins, the real path to victory I see is a hard-fought game with, perhaps a score late in the fourth quarter, but definitely within a touchdown.
Riley, how much would a win impact the state of BYU football right now, and a loss for that matter?
8-5 looks so much better than 7-6, and I know it's just a difference of 1 game, but 8-5 heading into Big 12 and given the turmoil and I know not every one of our viewers pays attention to what goes on Twitter, but if you're even kind of on the periphery, you've heard about some of the drama and all the emotions and the stuff like that. And it's just been a drama-fraught season. So if you can end on an emotional upswing, healing heals a lot of wounds. I continue to say, chemistry for me is such an interesting thing in sports, because have you ever heard of a team that's won a championship and admitted that they didn't have good chemistry? No, that chemistry is only associated with losing. So, is it the chicken or is it the egg that comes first? But so winning heals a lot of wounds. I know that Coach Sitake is we know by the changes that he's made, and I love the Jay Hill hire. I love Kelly Papinga coming back to BYU. I think that will have significant cultural impact. I know they're going to make some strategic decisions, maybe not about football scheme, but at least their approach to strength and conditioning and some other things. So I like the moves that Kalani's made, but man, a win helps provide some win for your sales heading into the offseason. Not just, I would even say more for the fans, even than for the program.
Yeah, and listen, when the present is inconvenient or bad, you just push it forward, right? It's a defense mechanism. If BYU loses, we'll just go, hey, Big 12, reset button, all good. If BYU wins, be like, hey, nice recovery, and then either way, we're going to the Big 12, whatever. You mentioned the defensive staff and this new look coaching staff with strength and conditioning and whatnot. I want to ask you about defense and then strength and conditioning. There are 2 more positions available on the defensive staff. What does BYU need in those coaches, in your opinion, that we perhaps anticipate could be safeties and defensive line?
Yeah, and what's interesting, you mentioned the positions, honestly, from my point of view, and keep in mind, right, I've never put together a staff, and I don't know how hard it is to recruit guys like this and that, but at this point, I don't care that much about like a guy's ability to scheme or even coach up a technique heading into the Big 12. One, if not both of those positions need to be coaches with strong, established, successful recruiting ties into Big 12 country, primarily Texas, just because we know about the gross number of talent and players that exist in that state. You need, in my opinion, you need to start those pipelines as early and as successfully as you can. Ultimately, what will establish and strengthen those pipelines will be success in the conference, wins. I think that's what players care about above all else. But relationships can kind of give you a head start on that. So I'd like to see that. And I think if we look at where, at least by my evaluation, where is BYU going to struggle the most in the transition? I don't think like BYU is going to get shut out and average 13 points a game. I think they're going to find a way to score points and offensively put together, a complement of offensive players, regardless of who moves on, that can be able to have success in the Big 12. Not to mention everybody plays bad defense, but it's the Big 12 it's the defense heading into the Big 12 that, if we can't get get a really strong, deep defensive set of roster players, giving up 35, 40 points a game is a very real possibility.
Riley, because you are a quarterback and because you know what Jaron Hall means to this team and what the departure of Jaron Hall would mean to the state of BYU football, what's your pitch to any quarterback out there in the transfer portal that's thinking about playing at BYU and helping the Cougars transition into year 1 of the Big 12?
There'd be no better opportunity to show what you can do as a leader, and as far as, to what the kids say, putting your team on your back, than to take over a team making the jump from FBS independent into a Power 5 conference, right? You will be, with the absence of a COVID junior, essentially what we have is a 5th-year senior in Jaron Hall, who, if he decides to move on, anybody coming in would come in as a transfer, and if they can have immediate success, I know NFL evaluators and coaches would, from the intangible aspect, they wouldn't question that guy. They'd be like, holy cow, that situation is not one that is conducive to success, and this kid came in and was able to deliver. So that would be on that side of any potential player's evaluation. And then on the other side of the evaluation, it's like, come play in my opinion, the most entertaining conference in college football, where you've got incredible talent. You've got NFL talent on the field every Saturday. You're a quarterback, so even the lower end teams of the Big 12 are still putting up points and yards. You're going to have opportunities to play in great stages. Come take your shot. Come help. One of the, maybe a quip I'd throw in there is help us continue our winning streaks against Texas and Oklahoma before we send them to the. I play on some of those things, and then my last element of it would be, if you want to be pro ready, there's no better place than BYU. Look at our film. Look at where we were able to play Zach Wilson in the NFL draft. Jaron Hall is a draft pick. hope, maybe by the time you're recruiting a kid, he actually has his position. But he, by all accounts, is an NFL draft pick. We run a system that when you turn on the TV on on Sundays, you see, something very similar to the same offense that we run. So I would say all those opportunities for college, and then it would be hard pressed to. I would challenge a recruit to find a resume in the Big 12 currently. A regime in place. Obviously, there's Oklahoma, but that was all Lincoln Riley. Look at a Big 12 school that's put out higher caliber NFL talent than BYU, and you'd be hard pressed to find it.
Jaron Hall's on a roster next year. That'd be 3 former quarterbacks in the Satake era, so that'd be quite a number for a potential recruit to see. Want to ask you about the 2010 New Mexico Bowl. You were injured, but on the roster, of course, and at that bowl game. What do you remember from that big win over UTEP?
Yeah, that was Cody Hoffman's coming out party, right? And I had been living with Cody and knew that he had it in him. He was a little bit of a late bloomer and slow developer, not athletically, but just adjusting from coming from Crescent City, a super small town in Northern California, on the coast of Northern California, and coming into BYU and the culture shock to where a religious institution to where he didn't grow up particularly super active in any religion, and adjusting to that, and then also adjusting to the academic rigors and all of those things. So I was super happy for my roommate and his coming out party, and to see him get that opportunity. And then the second thing I remember is I had a lot of great friends. In fact, my probably longest tenured friends on that 2010 team. I mean, I'm still tight with all my offensive buddies, but the majority of that offense played beyond 2010. But you look on the defensive side of the ball, Andrew Rich, Shane Hunter, a lot of those seniors defensively. It was great to be able to send those guys out, because that was a roller coaster of a season in 7-6, to finish the way we did, and replacing the void from a very senior-laden team in 2009, and to lose 4 straight games and battle our way back to bowl eligibility, and then notch that 7th win to finish with a winning record and send out all those our defensive captains and players who I looked up to so much. So those were the 2 biggest things, was the redemption story just of that 2010 team overall, but more specifically that defense and the seniors on that defense. And of course, Cody was there. And then just because I know people are wondering, because that was at maybe not the peak of the Jake and Riley drama, but it definitely was a big theater in there. It did add to my motivation, and I'd be lying if I did say, all right, maybe I am going to be holding the clipboard for the rest of my career. Lucky for me, it didn't work out that way, and I was able to, play some more games at meaningful snaps there. But it was looking like the door maybe was shutting on me there in the New Mexico Bowl in 2010.
Riley, it's great to catch up with you. Great insight into the BYU, BYU quarterbacks, into the New Mexico Bowl, and we'll see you down in Albuquerque.
Always a pleasure, fellas. See you down in the land of enchantment.
Yes, let's go.
We need a Riley Jake show. The story behind what happened another time. Thanks, Riley.
Okay. 30 for 30 or whatever our BYU.
Yes. 15 for 15. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Thanks, Riley. Okay, coming up on Thursday night, tonight on the BYU TV app, 8:30 Eastern. I was getting ahead of myself. Looking forward to Western Oregon. No, we got a coach show tonight. Greg Wrubell and the coach look back over the win over Creighton, Western Oregon Thursday, that team up north Saturday, BYU basketball with Mark Pope tonight on the app.
Plus, is BYU in the running for a top spot in the Big 12? In year 1? Number 1 in which category? We'll discuss next on BYU Sports Nation.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by The BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Trio Orem Senior Living believes in empowering seniors to live life to the fullest. We help eliminate stress out of daily life when you live at Trio. Less time focusing on housework means you can socialize at one of our many events, with safety in mind, of course. And did we mention our spacious apartments with modern amenities? Learn more about setting up a private tour at trioorem.com.
Mark?
Some of my favorite moments are hearing from the family room, just a chorus of laughter.
Twas your mother's.
BYU TV has been an escape and a refuge for me. We forgot about random acts. We love that one.
Today we wanted to do something nice for you.
I see that change on him after that show.
It just brightened everybody's day.
I can do this.
I want to live my life in a way that show showed me.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation. Make sure to follow the show on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
He is Jarom Jordan. I am Spencer Linton. Let's whip it. The Cougar Whip Around presented by Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner.
The bowl game depth chart is out. What's the biggest surprise?
Probably the fact that BYU has 3 healthy running backs. It's not been good back there. So, yeah, some good news. I'm taking a positive spin here. BYU has 3 healthy running backs. No Lopini Katoba, Chris Brooks, Hinkley Ropati, and Miles Davis. All good, expected to play. BYU's going to need all 3 if they want to establish a ground game and try and outscore this SMU high-powered offense.
That's how they can win the game, I think. We've known about most of the guys, but no Harris LaChance was a surprise.
Yeah, for sure, and not in a good way, right?
No Campbell Barrington, no Braden Keim, of course, injured, but Campbell's transferring. But Harris, it was like, whoa, shoot, must be hurt.
Yeah, love Harris. Huge piece for BYU.
Pun.
Based on fan attendance, Jarom, numbers in the Big 12 from the current season, combined with the attendance numbers from the new Big 12 entrants for next season, and minus Texas and Oklahoma, who might leave after one season, BYU, we see BYU at number 1. Averaging 59,674 fans a game. Do we expect BYU to remain the top attended football team in the new Big 12 when Texas and OU leave?
Yeah, and I expect that number to go to probably 61 or so. Maybe it's 63, maybe it's a sellout every time. We'll see. I think Cougar Nation's going to show up in the way they haven't.
Oh, for sure.
Once you get into the Big 12.
It's a hot ticket, right?
Absolutely.
Like, season ticket sales are going to go through the roof, and it's going to be a tougher ticket because everybody wants to be there for the first year of the Big 12.
Absolutely. End year 29. Let's go. Okay, Creighton basketball lost another close game last night, this time to Arizona State. Their net ranking takes a hit. Will BYU's win over the Blue Jays be a quad 1 on Selection Sunday?
Yes. Kalkbrenner's going to be back for Creighton.
We hope so.
The Blue Jays are going to figure it out. They're a good team. They were ranked as high as number 7 this season and rolling. They've certainly hit a tailspin for sure, but they've dealt with sickness and injury, and BYU was the beneficiary of Kalkbrenner not playing in that game. If he plays, no way BYU's winning that game. Come on.
I think BYU loses that game, yeah.
For sure. So he's going to get back. He's going to be healthy. They're going to figure it out, and they'll be a top 50 team net rankings come Selection Sunday.
And if they're not, it mattereth not, because BYU's not competing, I think, for an NCAA tournament bid. The question is whether BYU will make the NIT. They certainly helped their chances by beating Creighton. BYU's got to continue down that path to beat Utah on Saturday. That really helps as well.
Oh, man.
Right now, BYU is 181 in the net. That means BYU on the road in WCC play is a quad 4 to everybody on their home gyms.
Crazy.
That is nuts. Certainly that number will go up if BYU finds a bit of a win streak here.
Yeah. But I mean, Creighton's going to do their thing, and we need a little bit more time to establish a more solid net ranking scenario. Like let's get to January, and then it's like, okay, now I feel like the net is settling in.
But we're a third of the way through. Like we know a little bit.
It's pretty early.
Like through 4 games of football, we know a little bit. Yeah.
We know who BYU is for sure. I guess my statement is in reference to Creighton. Like they'll settle in.
Let's say they become number 1 in net. So what? Like BYU has to do a lot of things to make the NCAA tournament, which I don't really see at this point. It's whether BYU can make the NIT. And of note, BYU chooses not to play in any other tournament besides those 2. So if BYU's not good enough to make the NIT, they won't play in a postseason.
Now that's interesting because that was the Dave Rose regime. Would that change under Mark Pope?
I heard the other day that is the plan. I didn't hear it from an administrator, but I had a conversation where that was said.
Okay. BYU women's basketball assistant coach Aaron Koloff took his suit game for the Christmas dress-up party to another level. It looks like a suit based on royal blue wrapping paper. Is Coach Koloff the drippiest, swaggiest BYU coach this holiday season?
This holiday season, yes. I would argue that, generally speaking, the drippiest coach is Diljit Taylor.
Yeah. Totally fair. Rocking that Prada,
I think Diljit has her own Nike deal. I'm pretty sure. I'm not kidding. I think she's a big deal.
She is.
I think we're lucky to have her. I think she could make a lot of money elsewhere, but chooses to be here.
Oh, hopefully BYU's
because she loves what BYU
for
offers.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough to beat that. I don't know if I'm ready to call that some good drip or swag. It's more just like wow, right? It's wow.
Joy to the world.
Wow.
Jeez. BYU basketball.
I respect it.
Thursday night hosts Western Oregon. Speaking of drip. Coverage begins. BYU Sports Nation game day, 8 Eastern on BYU TV. I didn't even know where Western Oregon was. 90 minutes southwest of Portland, in Monmouth.
Okay. Hey, there's some serious swag coming out of Monmouth, Oregon.
You know it.
Plus, more of your responses to our question of the day. What are your expectations for the bowl game with all of the roster and coaching staff turnover? This is BYU Sports Nation.
Get it.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork sells Ford vehicles including the F-150, the pickup designed for work and play. Tim Daly Ford maintains a large inventory, providing more choices for selecting an F-150 with the power and engineering to carry and tow heavy loads. The F-150's design offers comfort, safety, and a range of options to choose from. Think Ford. Think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
Dexter & Dexter is a full-service law firm offering a wide range of legal services. Since 1995, we have helped more than 20,000 Utahns both to navigate life's challenges and to make the most of life's opportunities. From car accidents to business law, from divorce to estate planning, we are passionate about shouldering your burdens. To learn more about scheduling a no-obligation consultation, visit dexterlaw.com.
BYU Food to Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. BYU Food to Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
Do you ever feel small?
3, 2, 1, go!
Have regrets? I guess we all have them. And trust. That's tough to earn or regain.
You are the winner of Survival!
Glad we're doing this.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation live from Studio B alongside Jarom Jordan. I am Spencer Linton. Our question of the day with BYU football's current roster and coaching staff turnover. What are your expectations for the Cougars when they match up with SMU on Saturday?
Are any of you like, no, BYU's winning?
BYU's
like,
100% going to win.
Yeah, is anyone not concerned? Obviously, no Jaron Hall equals concern, no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if Conover's here, because we hadn't seen him play, right? And the defensive staff. By the way, BYU's not the only team with quarterback injuries or a depleted staff that are playing a bowl game.
100%.
But it's tougher.
It would be a tough game for BYU if Jaron Hall were playing quarterback.
I think September BYU, it would still be a tough game.
It would be a tough game if Jaron Hall were healthy.
And BYU had the whole staff.
It's okay to admit that.
Yeah.
SMU's playing good football. They got a great offense.
They struggled at the beginning of the year. They've been on fire since.
And some people say, well, BYU beat Boise State and they beat Stanford. fine, whatever. Both teams have played well, but BYU did so with Jaron Hall. If he's not going to play.
Yeah, Stanford stunk. Yeah, Boise State, great win no matter what's up with Boise State. Granted, they went to the Mountain West title game. Quality team. Utah Tech.
It's okay to understand why Vegas odds makers have SMU as a clear favorite against BYU.
It's only like 1.5 points, though. I would have SMU by like 3.5.
Do they know? Is it because Kalani said what he said?
Like if they knew.
Like, wait, is Jaron Hall going to play?
If they knew, like if we knew Jaron was out, that's not reportedly, the case. Like he hasn't been ruled out, as we mentioned. We'll see. Then that line changes.
That line swings to like 4 or 5 points in favor of SMU.
Perhaps. I would go like 3.5.
Okay.
But realistically, SMU covers that in my opinion.
All right.
Hopefully BYU shows up and pulls off an upset.
Yes,
that'd be great.
We all hope for
Obviously, we want that. Look at all the BYU stuff in this graphic.
We will blow the trumpet in Studio B, at least I will.
I used to play the trumpet, Spence. I need one. That way I can play along with BYU Sports Nation.
I like it when you play the saxophone.
Yeah, Careless Whisper. And that's a deep cut on this program.
Jonathan Hulkinson on Twitter says,
super fan.
With my blue goggles firmly on, I expect a BYU win with a dominant offensive performance.
Okay, then. Well, SMU's defense stinks.
Offensive line? BYU can dominate with the offensive line. They can do that.
Frankly, both defenses are not great. This could be a shootout. But like Riley said, if BYU wins, it's a close one. If SMU wins, it's probably...
Could be double digits.
Blowout city. Okay. Hopefully not.
Jonathan adds, we will see some young players step up that haven't had much playing time this season. We'll be surprised by some guys.
What if Miles Davis pulls a Wyoming?
Awesome. Awesome. What if Kate Finnegan doesn't have to throw it more than 15 times because BYU's running crazy?
There we go. That's me. We recorded that.
TX Colonel on Twitter says, I expect BYU to pound the rock. Me too. Heavy doses of Chris Brooks, Hinckley Rapati, maybe Miles Davis. Fly sweep action to Nakua.
There'll be all kinds of Puka Nakua.
Just when SMU sells out to stop the run, boom, Chase Roberts is on the case, plus
nice
Isaac Rex, T-Rex over the middle. The defense will surprise everyone with new energy as they seek to impress their new coach.
Yeah, there are guys who find for spots.
Added motivation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, if you just line up rosters right now, like, it's tough. You line up staffs. It's just, there's not as many guys around. Jake Hatch, by the way, of 1280 The Zone, reporting that Harris LeChance having season-ending injury is what he said. That's why Harris.
I hope Harris heals up, man. He's got a bright future if he wants to pursue football.
He's an NFL kind of guy.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, up next. Well, first of all, we should probably remind people how they can tune in for more game day coverage.
Do you want to watch Spencer on his Breaking Bad tour? Saturday, 5:30 Eastern time on BYU TV.
You need to be on that tour with me.
I know. I wish I was. I'll be busy doing that. SMU and BYU in the Cougars' final bowl game as an independent. Let's go.
Don't you want to drive past Hank and Marie's house somewhere in Albuquerque?
Yes. I want to throw pizza on Walter White's house, too. Absolutely.
Up next, the top 5 plays from BYU's last trip to the New Mexico Bowl. Scored 52 against Utah.
Oh, yeah.
This is BYU Sports Nation.
Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Accidents don't just happen 9 to 5. They happen when you least expect them. The team at Siegfried & Jensen is here for you 24/7. Nights, weekends, every day, every hour. Really here for you. No matter when you call us, you'll speak to a real person and have access to the same expertise and personal attention as always, and get the legal help you need when you need it. Nights, weekends, every day, every hour, 24/7.
Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
Before I was a coach at BYU, or before I was even a player, I was a BYU fan. That's why BYU football exists, is because of the fans. To have a bunch of fans that want to see you be aggressive, I think everybody can live through our 123 guys on the roster and the 11 that are on the field at a time. really it all starts and ends with the fans.
This is all for you. An incredible woman who has helped thousands of families, all while taking care of her own son with autism.
I don't even know the last time they've had a holiday with their kids or grandkids.
Oh my gosh. Oh. There is just one more thing that we would like to celebrate with you.
Oh my goodness!
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
BYU Sports Nation's on demand. Download the free BYU TV and BYU Radio apps and subscribe, rate, and review to the podcast.
In preparation for BYU football's New Mexico Bowl showdown with SMU on Saturday, let's look back at the last time the Cougars played in the New Mexico Bowl in 2010 against UTEP. 52 points. It's Top 5 Tuesday, focusing on the top 5 plays from that game.
I was there. It was a fun day. Number 5, got J.D. Falslev, first punt return of the day. 43 yards. Brian Correa would cap it off with the rushing touchdown, giving the Cougars a 7-0 lead. One of many scores that day, but J.D. getting it done, nearly getting the TD as he crosses into the other side of the field. Great field position.
At number 4, the Cougars rounding out a 78-yard drive. Jake Heaps opened his scoring with a 9-yard pass to senior Luke Ashworth. This is the Luke Ashworth game.
No, that was the Colorado State game.
That's true.
Yeah.
Cougars up 14-0 in the first.
Not bad. Number 3, Cody Hoffman gets the second of 3 TDs that day, 3 yards out. Cougars up 31-3. Easy money.
31-3 at that point. We're not done. At number 2, more Cody Hoffman. Heaps to Hoffman, breaking away from his defender. Woo. Feet in bounds, 31-yard touchdown grab.
Good enough for a billboard. And the top play from the 2010 New Mexico Bowl, Jake Heap finds Cody Hoffman for a third time, 29 yards. Woo. Boom, goes the dynamite. Hoffman ties the BYU Bowl record for most TD catches in a game. Heap sets a New Mexico Bowl record with 4 TDs. Of note, BYU has thrown or rushed for 4 TDs in 3 straight bowl games as of right now. Perhaps we'll see that in the New Mexico Bowl.
There was something special about Cody Hoffman in the state of New Mexico. He had 5 touchdown catches against New Mexico State.
That's right. From James Lark.
And he had 3 in the New Mexico Bowl. 8 touchdowns in that state.
Should have played for New Mexico.
All right, our elite voice of the day presented by PAX Healthcare Elevated. What are you expecting from the Cougars in the bowl game with all the turnover? Tyson Peterson on Facebook says, right now I expect one thing, players to prove themselves for whatever their futures lie, or wherever their futures lie, whether at BYU or in the NFL. Make a statement. Today's Rise and Shout Out presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. One more time to the legend, Mike Leach, and his entire family.
Absolutely.
Our thanks to today's guest, Riley Nelson.
Sorry to Dennis Pitta, we ran out of time.
For Jarom Jordan, I am Spencer Linton. Let's give another shout out to Luke Ashworth. Go Cougs! We'll see you back here in Studio B for more BYU Sports Nation and BYU basketball with Mark Pope tonight on the app.